What's up, fantasy managers, and hope you're doing well. Week 10 is up and is gone, and we're going to be looking at our top 8 players that you need to be looking at right now if you're contending. But that's enough talking. Let's get to it.
Hey, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't follow no script. I make my own lane, got a spreadsheet mind and a red rash brain. Dynasty beats got that tape in my veins while they drafting by names. I'm exposing their game, no cap. We study the craft like film room rats. Gyms in the fourth while they stuck in the past. It's levels to the dynasty, keep or flex. From rookies to pros, we demand and respect. That's real. And I ain't never need clout for my clout to show. Just a mic I take and a team I grow. This ain't just picks, it's principle G. It's fourth in fantasy where you build your legacy. We 10 toes down, yeah, we stand.
Uh, 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 we 10 toes down and we stand on facts. My name is Huncho, and this is my guy.
Rocco. They call me Rocco.
And we are Fortune Fantasy, your fantasy playbook to more championship wins in Rocker, where we the land
We,
of.
we are a fantasy football podcast for Dynasty Sickos by Dynasty Sickos. Everybody's welcome.
But everybody is welcome. Rocco, how we feeling, my G?
Man, I'm feeling good. I'm well rested. We had a holiday today, so I was off of work. We took off Monday, so I had some R&R to relax after a long week, long weekend. You know, like I said on Sunday, we worked the Billie Eilish concert. Man, she
Mm-hmm.
puts on a fucking hell of a concert. Not really my cup of tea, but man, she had that fucking stadium enthralled. Man, it was a lot of fun.
And man, if we're looking at where we at in the fantasy season at this point, we're kind of deep in the weeds, right? I'm looking at my a few of my paid leagues, and I'm sitting kind of right and nice. Looking at 7 and 3s. There is a couple of ones that went honestly to the left very quickly, just due to injuries. One that hurts my soul because the last 2 seasons I was contending, but that was kind of my strategy to begin with that team, where I was kind of just going for it for the first 2 seasons. Like I was basically balls to the wall, and if I didn't win in those 2 seasons, I was going to be a little hurt. But nevertheless, I had CD get hurt earlier in the year, had Tyreek Hill basically leg go to the left, to the right, shake your thing now. So it's been and I had Aaron Jones get hurt earlier in the year. It's been a very tough for that team particularly. It's been very tough for your boy. And then, but other than that, man, I'm honestly looking at these fantasy playoffs, kind of trying to figure out what, because some trade deadlines are hitting this week. Actually,
Mm.
if you do, I don't do trade deadlines. To be honest with you, I keep some of my leagues. I keep it open, but for the leagues that do, this is either this week or next week is the trade deadline. So I mean, hey, these are the players that you need to be looking at. Our top 8. If you're looking to contend, make a playoff push, and where you might just you're not going to have to break the pocket too much. But Rocco, enough of me. Let's get into these top 8. I'm gonna let you go first for our first quarterback you need to be trading for.
Yeah, this one was actually a surprise. Like if you had told me, I would have told that I was talking about telling you guys and gals to trade for this gentleman. You know, as soon as before Sunday's games, I would have thought you were crazy.
Local.
I thought I would have thought you were nuts. I did like some of the stuff I seen from this guy in preseason, but his first game for my Saints against the Rams, it wasn't pretty. But man, Tyler Shuck looked pretty fucking good out there on Sunday and beat a pretty tough Pandas defense. And just some of the numbers: 280 yards, which is like one of the highest totals for a Saints rookie of all time, um, and was number 5 on the week. Number 5 in completion percentages amongst all NFL quarterbacks. He was also number 5 in passer rating according to PFF. Number 3 number three in passer rating per NFL. Um, yeah, and like I said, 70% completion percentage. But watching that game, which was what was really nice to see, was him kind of moving up in the pocket,
Yeah, he was ripping that thing.
him being strong, under pressure. And I think one of the biggest things, one of the biggest advantages he has over Rattler, and this is no fault of Rattler, it's just human anatomy. It's just him being like 6'4",
I
six
was
foot
gonna say he's a
five.
bigger guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a bigger guy. He's got a little bit bigger arm, but just being able to see over the top of the offensive line and kind of being able to take advantage of the middle of the field, that's huge for him. Also, he was second yards per attempt. Let's see if I got.
But you know how those rookies, they always like if they have an arm, they love showing that thing. And Shook
Hmm.
is not scared to throw that ball downfield
Yeah,
or just stretch it at least to get the ball downfield.
zero turnover worthy plays. So he played, basically a flawless game, as flawless as a guy that scores 17 points on the day can be.
Could you say it
Um,
would be fair that honestly he just needs snaps at this point to get more familiar
um,
with the NFL game?
he's going to get snaps because
Mhm.
he's going to be the starter for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
Because
Rattler, it's
the
done.
Saints need to
Sorry,
see.
sorry,
Yeah, I mean,
Rattler.
Rattler proved that he can be a solid backup in the league, but um, it's Shuck's time. I mean, he had a better performance on Sunday than Rattler's had in his entire career. So, and he did all of that while losing his second best wide receiver in Rashid Shaheed.
Yeah,
So
Rashid Shaheed.
he made Olave look awesome. Had a very long touchdown, I think like 70 yards. Um, with what some people might like to label a push off, but Shuck still got it down the field to him, and he scored. So yeah, this is a game that I had like zero hope in, and I was all in on the rebuild. But if Shuck can put together a few more performances like this, I'll be super confident that we have at least a starter in this league, and we can focus instead of focusing on quarterback in 2026. We
Mhm.
can start to focus on other positions and start to build out this team to get to really get this rebuild going. So that's very important, for a rebuilding type team, is to really nail that quarterback. And Sunday showed us that we just might have that guy. So right now, I would be willing to send out a second round pick for Tyler Shuck, a 2026. I don't have a lot of value. I don't put a lot of value on anything outside of the top half of the first round in 2026. So if I can get a potential well, he's not that young, but a potential starter in the league for a second round pick that's tall, that has some athleticism with a big arm, yeah, I'll take that chance.
But you think in the super flex, someone's gonna let Tyler Shook at this point move for a second, maybe a second and a third? Are you willing to come off a late first for Tyler Shook?
Well, I'm not giving up a first.
He said, "I'm not doing
Um,
it."
but
But
but let's look at the reality of the situation.
yeah, let's do it.
Most people got him with a third round pick. They saw him fall flat on his face in his first start um, against the Rams,
Mhm.
and he's got one good game under his belt. So I think some people are willing to let him go and re-roll that second. And I think you can get Shuck for a second round pick. Matter of fact, when I get off this podcast, I'm sending out blanket seconds for him, and we're
Yeah,
gonna make
yeah.
something happen. I promise you, I'll get a
Come back
couple
with them
hits on
trades.
that.
Come back with them trades. We're gonna put
I
them up
love
next
my
episode. We're gonna on Sunday. We're gonna come back. We're gonna put them on the pod for sure, for sure.
I love sending out my blanket trades. If I still got the seconds, because a lot of leagues I don't even have the seconds anymore because I already sent out the blankets. But I'm a cheapo in trades. I like to get those guys, those ascending guys, and still hold on to my first and save those first for like the real, you know, bona fide studs.
Well, Rocco, you know who else you could send a second for, my boy? my quarterback. The second quarterback that you need to be trading for right now as a contender is Matthew Stafford, Mr. QB7 currently right now in 2025, throwing for 2,427 passing yards, 25 passing touchdowns, and only two interceptions. That boy has been taking care of the rock. You know how I feel about my dogs, go dogs. Always rooting for Matthew Stafford. But man, is the the Rams offense killing with Puka Nakua even being out. And then you got Devontae Adams being a touchdown master at this point. I absolutely love that offense. Yes, Devontae Adams did look like he kind of looked like something with his back during the game happened, but Nakua is back, and hopefully, if Devontae Adams does miss games, Puka can. We seen what he can do, and with as more games he gets under his belt, he will get back to his pre-injury status. I think so, but we absolutely love Matthew Stafford before the season started, and Rocco was even on record saying that he would throw for 5,000 yards. Hell, I think it still could happen at this point if everything keeps going good and sexy. So, with how I feel, honestly, you should be sending out a second right now for Matthew Stafford because one, he's an older. So yes, the value, even though he's having a really great season, I'm not telling you to go out to send a first because that's wild. He could end up retiring next year, right? And even the worry was coming into the season, his back was messed up, but he's been hanging in there. So shout out to him. But you just never know how the rest of the year or how he's going to feel next year. He's a competitor, so I don't see him retiring. But you just never know with older quarterbacks. So I wouldn't send out a first for him, but hell, and you might even be able to get a third for him, depending on who that team is. I'm not going. I wouldn't do it for a third, but I could see some. You find that right individual, you could sneak a third in. But if you really want to go get,
Drugs.
it's going to have to be a second, and I think you could for
Drugs.
sure get. It is drugs, but you can for sure get Matthew Stafford off of somebody's team.
Yeah. The funny thing about Matthew Stafford is, I've been on the Stafford train all off season. I was off of him just a little bit because the whole back fiasco, but somebody said something on Twitter the other day. I don't know who it was. So sorry, I'm not crediting you, but they were like, man, that bastard just did that shit so he could take off training camp. Like, he just didn't want to fucking training camp. Um, but the funny thing about Matthew Stafford is, man, I have him as my QB4 in some teams,
Mm.
on some teams, and I offered him for any year second. I put him on the open market on the notes any year second, and nobody would buy. Nobody would buy this motherfucker. And the few people that would come, they would come cheap, like you were saying. With a third, I told them to go fuck themselves because I currently have my MVP for the low price of a second round pick. But guess what? Fuck you. The cost of the brick went up. Now you better give me a first, but not even that anymore because I'm glad y'all didn't take my cheap price of a second round pick for the MVP because now he's basically starting on those teams. So thank you guys. You saved me from myself.
No, listen. I personally right now, and where quarterback injuries across the season, honestly, just injuries in general this year has been crazy. You never know what can happen. One of your QB1 could literally be knocked out of a game next week, and you're totally fucked. I would be totally sending if that would happen. I would be totally sending a pick or something to acquire Matthew Stafford because I think one, he's a league winner. He can help you still compete. And honestly, he's a great QB2 that gives you a QB1 type performance. So go get yourself a Matthew Stafford for a second pick. Don't play with nobody. Come correct the first time so you don't get an instant decline. Don't play in people's faces. Rocco
Don't
says he's
fuck
not going for that shit.
don't fuck up because otherwise Otherwise, you're gonna get that LeBron look up.
But,
you
but
you getting the fucking LeBron look up if you try to get him for a third round pick. And that's all you get. Like, and you're gonna get posted on bad trade section of the Discord. And I was just telling our guy Max, we need to put, instead of our bad trades being named bad trades, it needs to be named LeBron Lookup.
yeah, LeBron like I like that. It's a little switch up.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
But we are going to go to a quick break here for league champ, our good guy Addy and the good team over there, Chef, where you can win a free NFL jersey every week by being the number one ranker. But and if you can find the link on the YouTube description to where you can download on Google Play Store or Apple Store, you can be or the top ranker. Beat me, Rocco, hell, Chef, all the good minds in the community, and see you can be the top dog. But here we go. See y'all after. Go with- Give it a moment. I was freestyling over here while that joke was playing. I was what Kodak say? Huh? Fire! I put that fire on your booty. That's what. If you don't know about that Kodak Black, stop playing with them. But we are back with Fourth and Fantasy, and we are going over our top 8 players that you need to be trading for right now. We just did our quarterbacks. I'm gonna start our running backs, Rocco, and I've been on this boy all season. And and I just want to say this as a disclaimer: I'm not rooting because of a man got hurt during the situation, right? And I know where y'all think I'm going with this, or who I'm going to be saying right now. RJ Harvey, come on, downplay boy. You have it is RJ Harvey season. Unfortunately, J.K. Dobbins did suffer a injury due to a hip drop tackle, which he very, very well voiced his opinion on Twitter, saying to either call it or ban that shit. So I'm not, I hope you are okay, Mr. J.K. Dobbins. We heard a little bit of whispers of today that he could end up going to IR, which means for the next 4 games, it's going to be Mr. RJ Harvey. And hopefully he doesn't give up that starting role. But man, this is what I've been waiting for all season. We've seen him get work through the passing game, and that's been fun because he has 4 receiving touchdowns, 175 receiving yards to go along with 2 rushing touchdowns, 214 rushing yards. And he has 3 top 15 RB finishes. And he hasn't even had full RB1 touches. He's been split in the backfield. I want to see if Sean Payton finally unleashes RJ Harvey, how we just saw with Travion Henderson just getting unleashed with the Patriots. And that had to come down. And that only happened because of Jennings goddamn got hurt. That's literally the only reason why Vrabel gave us the fantasy goodness that we got in money. That blows my mind right there, Rocco. But how do you feel about RJ Harvey? Finally, he's going to be getting those RB1 type touches going forward for at least 4 games, potentially.
Man, are you ready for them to bring in Leonard Fournette?
And the way I will literally write up a letter, send it to Sean Payton, and say, "What the fuck is you doing? Stop playing with my emotions."
I I don't know. I think he's gonna get more touches, but it's really gonna come down to whether Sean Payton trusts him to keep the offense on track. And I know this is funny saying, after, that offensive performance we just saw on Monday night, or last Monday or whatever it was, prime time, where they couldn't get anything going. But J.K. Dobbins was still a big part of that offense. And, um, I think he's just a very underrated running back. You see him, making nothing out of something a lot, sticking his nose in there and getting what's blocked, and a lot of times getting more than what's blocked.
Hmm.
Um, Harvey has a tendency to want to bounce stuff outside, so if he starts bouncing that shit outside and getting them, behind the sticks, because don't get me wrong, RJ Harvey is super explosive. You've seen all of the the big flashy touchdowns he scored, but if he can't keep that offense on track on first and second down, and keep them moving, then Sean Payton's going to find somebody that will. So hopefully, over the course of the season, he's corrected some of those tendencies to want to bounce out and get the big home run play on on every down. So um, we'll see. We'll see. I want him to fully break out, because I got quite a few shares of Harvey in leagues. But I just know how Sean Payton operates, and if he's not running the offense that Sean Payton calls, then he'll put anybody in there. I mean, he'll put fucking Bidet, fucking, the toilet
I hope not.
that
That'd be a little upsetting.
shoots water in your butthole. Bidet, he'll put him in the fucking game,
I'd be a
and
little
sit
upset
Harvey
about
right
that,
on the
man.
bench.
I need all RJ, Sean Payton. Listen, hear me. If you hear me loud, I need all type of RJ Harvey type activity
Yeah.
going on for the next foreseeable weeks
Yeah,
because
yeah. If Harvey ain't blocking, then guess what? He ain't getting the third down roll either. So, hopefully he does, because I want to see those explosive plays. I want to see big, gaudy, 20 point, 30 point games from RJ Harvey. But he's gonna have to do the little things to stay on the field.
see now that he's actually making plays on the field, I don't think where you could have gotten him early in the season because I saw people panic selling for 2026 seconds, shipping him off and things of that nature. That wasn't me though. That was a straight hole to see if he was going to go straight to that glory, and he
You,
did. Well, he hasn't gone
you,
straight to the glory, but he's had success. So I
you
don't
think
think
you can
you
get him
could.
for a first now? Or what?
I would shoot a late first. I think you have to shoot a late first at this point, or
You
at
think
least
that gets it
throw,
done?
or maybe throw. Shoot, what like you don't do that for you don't
That's
do it you don't do it for 1 second at this point, 2 seconds.
No, I mean, I wouldn't, and I know a lot of the bag holders wouldn't, because they drafted him in the first round. So a lot of them are
You need a
diamond
first.
handing. A lot of them are diamond handing. So you may need a first plus, or you
You need
may
a
need
first.
at least, show what looks to be a mid first to get him.
Yeah, you won't need it first to ship that out. At least for me, if you're trying to come get Harvey from me, I think at least you gotta be talking at first, just to see what we're talking about, and then we could get even push forward for that first and a third. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
yeah, I'm right there with you. But Rocco, who is your second running back that the people should be
Man,
considering
I
for?
might I might be a beating on the same drum over and over. Maybe I just didn't do enough research in this one. And I kind of alluded to this guy being a league winner. He's shown himself to be a league winner. Even in a game where I thought he would get 200 yards. I'm still talking about my Saints. I thought he was going to get 200 yards against my Saints. Even though the Saints kind of bottled him up, and I underrated the Saints defense just a little bit. They're pretty hit or miss so far this year. But they were hitting on Sunday. But even with all of that, he still got you still got you a touchdown, still got you about 15 points. And I am talking about Rico Dowdle, Uncle Rico, who is currently sitting at third in the league in rushing yards, even though in the first four games he was lightly used. And even when Chuba Hubbard came back, he was still on the 50-50 type role. So
He taking that whole backfield over. It kind of
Eh,
hurts my feelings a
yeah,
little bit.
yeah, yeah. Chuba Hubbard's completely nuked. Um, in 10 games, he also has 5 touchdowns. So, he could finish the season with 10 touchdowns on the year. But just basically every, he's 11th in run game per and run grade per PFF. He already has 200-yard games on the year. So, yeah, he is still a guy that you might be able to pull for a second round pick. I would even go so far as to offer like one of the younger backs in a second round pick. If you're a super contender, I would maybe throw like a Burchard Smith in a second.
Yeah,
You might be able to convince me to do like a Bayshaw Tootin in a second. Guys of that nature, maybe even a Kyle Monson guy in a second. Because let's be real, they've looked good this year, but that's opportunity. There's nothing saying the Bears can't get a Jeremiah Love next year,
so you
and
got to.
all of a sudden Swift and Monson guy are totally nuked. So those guys are fantastic stories, but there's no guarantee they're going to have workload come 2026. So,
Need that
um,
workhorse. Yep.
yeah, give me a guy that could absolutely win my league. And, if you trade for him, you can still hold on to your first and send that for, like another player that could be a league winner. Maybe one of the guys we're going to talk about later on, and really, stack your team to where it's going to be almost unbeatable. So, um, you know, uh, Rico Dowdle is my guy.
Yeah, I like that, man. And where you spoke on taking one of those younger pieces as a Bashal to and then using a second, I
Hmm.
basically had the same kind of strategy. I sold Bashal to and a second to get Javante Williams, it's along with Chubbard. So it was Chuba Hubbard because I was trying to upgrade my RB2. I already have Jameer Gibbs. I was looking at the basically, reading between the lines. It didn't look like Chuba Hubbard was going to regain his starting role. So I was
Hmm.
quickly looking for a RB2 replacement as I am contending. So I shipped out Chuba Hubbard, Bashul Tutin, and a 2026 second for Javante Williams and Coker for all my cokeheads. So I feel like honestly, and it's been really helping me out for this next phase of the season where the my schedule is looking real nice to set me up. Right now, I'm currently the third ranked team, sitting 7-3, trying to go in. I was the runner up previously last year, so I'm trying to go for this dub. I don't think I'm going to end up getting the first round bye in this league, as the leader right now has basically an easy schedule going forward. So he would just have to getting starts losing some easy layups for me to retake that. But nevertheless, we pushing on and good and good. But I do like me some Rico Dowdle. I think where once again where we always talk about follow the targets if you're the receiver, follow the touches or workhorse type guys if you're a running back. That's why we do love those Javante Williams. That's why we do like the Christian McCaffreys, the
Hmm.
Bijan, just because of they get the amount of touches in the offense that they do. Shoot, shout out to motherfucking Dan Campbell for taking over play calling and finally giving us fantasy goodness from Jameer Gibbs. Right, man. When if we saw Jameer go stupid against the Commanders, so I absolutely love that. And we also saw JMO have a nice day too. So, but we'll talk about that another time. But man, I do like me some Rico Dowdle, and if you, yeah, I do like the strategy of pairing him with a rookie or one of these younger guys and with a second and getting it done. If I'm not sure if I'm totally there with shipping out a late first for Rico. I don't know
Hmm.
why. I mean, he has production says yes, but profile or not profile, but just where projecting wise, he's still on a 1 year deal. So I'm not.
Yeah, my worry is that you're sending out a first for a 1 year player, and that's the scary part. And I also feel like if you're not a super contender and you got Rico Dowdle, you have to know that too. So it would be dumb of you to hold on to him if nobody's offering you a first, which I can promise you, not many people are going to give
No.
you a first because there are a lot of smart managers out there. Then, then I believe that most managers are going to want to get off of Rico Dowdle. And with the trade deadline coming up, I think you're going to see Rico Dowdle move off of some of the losing teams and get on to some contenders and push some of those contenders over the top.
Hell yeah. Shout out to Rico. Keep doing your big thing. And
Uncle
honestly,
Rico.
okay, so now before we move on to the tight ends, if you had to choose between Rico for these next 4 weeks or so, or for the rest of schedule type, for the rest of the year to bet on, if I'm a contender, I only have so many seconds. Go shoot out for Rico or go shoot out for RJ Harvey. And let's say it's dynasty. Redraft, I feel like it would be go out and go get Rico if that's be the instant one. But would it be in dynasty the same answer for you?
I mean, I don't think I'm gonna get RJ Harvey for a second or 2 seconds. So I don't know if those apples to apples. So I would go RJ Harvey in Dynasty, but I would also pay more for RJ Harvey because he's a rookie right now.
Yeah. Even with the older age, as it
I
is.
I don't care. For me, it's about the NFL miles. um, and the opportunity because I believe he was just a second round pick, whereas Rico Dowdle's was brought in on a 1 year deal, and they also have another highly paid guy in Chuba Hubbard that's still going to be under contract there next year, and that could shift. That could shift come next year. In the off season once Chuba Hubbard gets hurt healthy.
Yeah. So right now, RJ Harvey is currently RB 23, and I see him going very much up the chart with J.K. Dobbins. Unfortunately, with the injury that he sustained in this last week's game from a hip drop. Rest up, Big G and RJ Harvey. It's time for your season, my boy. Hold my fantasy teams down with good graces. But let's move over to these tight ends, and I'm super excited to talk about my guy. But I'm gonna wait on that. I'm gonna let you go first, Rocco.
Man, this guy's been hurt all year. But he's also the guy that most often, us Tucker Craft people compare this guy to Tucker Craft or vice versa. But he finally did have a good game after a couple slow games. He had zero point 0.0 points in his first game back, and that might have been the real time to buy. After he fucked a lot of people with 0 points in their lineup. But we finally got to see vintage George Kittle on Sunday with 9 targets, 9 catches, 84 yards, and a score. So I, yeah, especially like my teams where I had Tucker Craft and need another Studley tight end to replace him. George Kittle would be a guy that I'm aggressively going after. He's an older tight end, so I think if you send out a first, I think you're going to get George Kittle on your team and you're not going to get a lot of fuss. And he could be your league winner down the stretch as he showed that he could be this week. And I'm talking about tight end premium. If there's no premium, then I'm probably not sending out a first for an older tight end. But if there is the tight end premium, I'm going to send out a first. If I'm a contender, it's a late first anyway. And he could be your league winner. And I don't think he just has 1 year left in him. Um, Tight ends age a little bit more gracefully than like your running backs. so to speak. They just kind of still produce at a late age.
Yeah.
Just look at Travis Kelsey, Tony Gonzalez, guys like that. So yeah, if I can get George Kittle for a first, and I need the tight end position to like finish my team, finalize my team, make me go take me from contender status to favorite status, I'm sending out that first.
Hey, listen, George Kittle the last 3 weeks is tight end three, and he's averaging in those 3 weeks 14.9 in the PPR, and that's not tight end premium. So it does seem like he is starting to get his wheels back under him from the injury. And I'm still monitoring what happens between what they're doing with that quarterback situation in San Fran. I'm hearing that Brock Purdy could be back week 11. I'm not sure how to feel about that, but due to George Kittle doing his thing with Mac Jones. But I feel like at this point, if Mac Jones, hell, both him and Purdy are banged up at kind of crazy. So they need to decide what to go do next. And some people were kind of putting the whispers of a soft benching, kind of what we're seeing with the Cardinals. Cardinals say they're not soft benching Kyler Murray, but we see it. You don't got to lie to us. You can't trick us, bro. We see what we're happening. You see Brissett going out there, and the offense is out there wheeling and dealing, and you're telling me at first it went from he's there, he's almost there, and he'll be back next week until we want to give him a little bit more time. He's not healthy to now throw him on IR. Yeah, man, it's over. But hell yeah, I do like me some George Kittle, and I do believe he still warrants what, particularly more in tight end premium. He still does warrant a late first, just off of production alone. And even though he is an older tight end, because we wouldn't be throwing out a first for a Mark Andrews type, even though you could argue that Mark Andrews has had some of the same type of success that George Kittle has had throughout his career. But honestly, George Kittle could be one of those pieces, especially in tight end premiums, that goes super crazy in the playoffs. He always has a legendary fantasy playoff game for someone that gets you to either the championship or was the reason why you got to the championship. So I would honestly be sending out hell. There's so many people that you meet out there that are desperate or just willing to get off their older players to start a rebuild. Throw out a second or 2 seconds to go get Kittle. Maybe try to go the cheap way first to see if you can go get Kittle off of somebody. I think it's possible. 2 seconds could very much get it done.
Yeah,
But
yeah. It might, it totally might. But if just go out there fishing and see where somebody's heads at with George Kittle, especially if they're a losing team, if they're 3-7 at this point or worse. Maybe even 4-6, they may be throwing in the towels. I mean, we only got 4 weeks after this week, so kind of see where their heads at. With all of these players, especially older players, this is the time of year where you might be able to get a deal on these players, especially if they're not getting a lot of calls on these older players. So you want to be first to kind of check in with teams that are near the bottom. And if they have some of these players that are older, more veteran type of players, see what it's going to take to get them off of their team and onto yours and win some ships.
hey, some people might still be feeling like at 4-6, they're only a few games away and need some people to start losing for them to make the playoffs. So they might still try to be in some type of, you know, running to try to make the playoffs. But as we say here at Fourth and Fantasy, if you're in the middle, you might as well be last.
Yeah, my 4-6 teams, I'm like, man, who could I fucking trade on these teams? Because I want to get even lower. When you're in 30 leagues, you got teams at the top. You got rebuilds, and you even got some teams in the middle. You don't know how you got there, but you're trying to get out of that middle.
Yeah, the middle's never fun. At least when you're at the lower end, you have a higher draft pick. You can get one of the better players, and so you can stock up that way. But then also while you're in the middle, you're not making the playoffs, so it's even more of a sting. And then you throw in the max PF if we go by max PF, and that shit sucks because then you're one more the higher score. Um, so you never win. You never win being in the middle. So you might as it's better to be either at the top or at the bottom. I know that sounds crazy, right? But the math is somewhere along the lines there.
Yeah. If you could start at the bottom and then now you could be here,
Mm,
but in the middle, you'll always be in the middle.
yeah, exactly. So my tight end, or I just gave my Mr. Yes, we just did tight end. So my fault, my fault.
You,
So
you kind of briefly mentioned his name, but you didn't really go into your whys.
okay, so say less. So with Mark Andrews and what I have here, he these last looking at it, these last 2 weeks, he has been tight end 11. I can take that. And to say that he just got Lamar Jackson back when he went for a 10.4 fantasy points this previous week. And I will say, because my brother brought it up, it was due to mainly for a touchdown because he only went for about a he didn't go for a ton of yards. So that touchdown brought us all back. But the previous week was a 16.6 fantasy point type week. And what I like seeing from Mark Andrews, I say this all the time. He gets better as the year goes on. I don't know what it is. I don't know why he always starts slow, but he just gets it going towards the end. And maybe the Baltimore Ravens are very much still trying to make a push. And I could see maybe they try to, squeak their way into the playoffs. You just never know. I've seen the weirdest Cinderella stories, but I like Mark Andrews because one, he's not going to cost me the bank, right? And there's weeks where he could be tight end 5. There's also weeks where he could be tight end 30. So be prepared for that crash out. And if he's going to be involved in the offense that week. But Rocco, do you still like Mark Andrews in 2025? Is he still an asset that you're looking to acquire?
Man, I actually love Mark Andrews. He was I don't know if I was necessarily going after him hard in the offseason, but he just seemed like a guy that I was able to get on a ton of teams for roughly about second round value. I had him thrown into several deals. Uh, it just felt like people saw that drop in the playoffs and just assumed that because he dropped a pass in the playoffs, he would just be traded or he would be, phased out of the offense.
Hmm.
But I mean, he still is, even at this advanced age, even with Zay Flowers starting off hot, he still is. And you see it because he's the guy that Lamar Andrews looks for, in those crunch situations. But to kind of speak on how he plays better down the stretch, last year he started with 0 touchdowns in the first 5 games. And in the last 12 games, he had all 11 of his touchdowns, including a 6 game touchdown streak where he had 1 touchdown in each game to end the season. So, that's the kind of guy that you're getting when you trade for Mark Andrews. Yeah, and like you said, he may not always have the yards, but you can count on him to score touchdowns. And, that's what he does with his double digit touchdowns last year. And, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets you double digit touchdowns this year.
Hell yeah, man. Shout out to Rocco with the info right there. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. Always support the channel. Appreciate everybody that's tapped in with your boys. And you can always find our free Discord in the YouTube description where you get access to an amazing community. Shout out to everybody that's in the Discord and where you can ask us questions 24/7, trades, hell, dynasty questions, redraft questions, ask about bad trades, you name it. We got you in our Discord. And let me remind it is free. But let's end the episode on this last position group. Or my favorite, I will say, the wide receivers. Rocco, I'll let you take this one. Playboy, who is the one wide receiver that our viewers need to be trading for right now if they're a contender?
Man, this is another older guy. And you may be able to get him onto your team for a second, maybe 2 seconds. I wouldn't send out the first because of his advanced age. And he's the number two in his offense. But even as the number two, through 9 games, he's put up 569 yards, which is on pace for 1,000 yards, another 1,000 yard season. And he also leads the entire league as the number two on his team in touchdowns at the wide receiver position with 9. Devontae Adams
Whoa,
is
whoa,
currently the seventh ranked wide receiver in offense and wide receiver grade at the wide receiver position per PFF. And you just can't convince me he won't be a top 12, wide receiver at the end of the season. I know it looked like a little hip thing towards the end of the game last week. He's a tough guy. That doesn't seem like something that will keep him out of the game.
whoa.
That may be something where he needs to get a steroid and keep going. As long as it's not the knees, most of the time these guys play unless it's, broken ribs or something internal. But um, with Devonte Adams, if you can get him for, a second, maybe a
Another
second and a
second for
third,
you, yeah.
2 seconds, 2 seconds, you're talking about a guy, that can legit win you the championship in 2025. Me, I like to be ahead of the game. So I was getting him for a single seconds in the off season, when people were scared and saying, oh, he's going to a team with Puka and Nakua. He's not going to get shit. No, there's plenty of room for Puka and Devontae Adams to eat because they're basically the entire offense, except, some of these targets to the tight end occasionally. But Puka and Devontae Adams could eat weekly with my MVP candidate so far, Matthew Stafford.
No, man, I love that pick, right? When we're looking at Devontae Adams, and I've been a big fan of his whole career. Shout out to him. And he just basically just scored his, like I say, he is a future Hall of Famer at this point. And he's been having an amazing year with Matthew Stafford and the LA Rams since week 6. Devontae Adams is wide receiver 7, and he is averaging 19.3 fantasy points per game. Not bad for a old years a hunt. He is 32 years old, and he. I love watching Devontae Adams run routes. I never get tired of that because he's like we've always said, his game ages like fine wine. So he's not somebody who needs to beat you or who needs to beat you athletically. He is one of those gurus of the or technicians of the position. So I do love Devontae Adams. I would definitely send over a second round pick for him right now. I would be comfortable even doing 2 seconds for Devontae Adams right now. I wouldn't go above a first just because if he is 32. So, but the competitor tells me I could definitely see Devontae playing for another 2 years, 3 years. But I wouldn't want to send a first over. But I think a second definitely gets it done if he's on a team that is rebuilding. If he's on a contender already, they're not coming up off them. He's on that. He's the reason why they are contending, most likely. So I would definitely be keeping him in my pocket. Hell, I have him on plenty of contending teams that I have. So shout out to Devontae Adams. I would
Yeah.
uh, go ahead, Rocco.
No, I said I have him depending on your league score. I have him at wide receiver 6 or wide receiver 7. So this is as the number two in his offense, being a top 7 wide receiver. So even if there is some slippage, even if there is some touchdown regression, I still believe wholeheartedly, totally that he will finish as a top 12 wide receiver on the year. And what's crazy is if you've watched the games, there have been some pretty big misses, some miscommunications with Devontae Adams just because they don't have that mind meld yet. Devontae Adams, this is his first year with the Rams, so Matthew Stafford doesn't still know exactly where Devontae Adams wants the ball at all times. So,
Mm.
you know, in the second half, we could even see a bigger glow up and even bigger numbers for Matthew Stafford. And that's crazy to me as well as Stafford's been playing
Would you go Devontae Adams or Chris Olave
in Dynasty.
if you're trying to contend? Yes. Okay, redraft
I, I
wise,
probably
Devontae.
go I probably
Redraft
go a
wise, I
lot.
feel like Devontae Adams is
Redraft, it's
bigger.
it's
Yeah,
easily Adams. It's
yeah,
easy Adams. And redraft, I'm taking the age and the potential glow up with Tyler Shuck and Olave.
I like it. Would you go Devontae Adams or Devontae Smith? I feel
It's
like even in Dynasty, Devontae Adams beats Devontae Smith for me right now.
Smith is so good. It's his situation. He doesn't get the targets to compete on it numbers wise. In redraft, it's easily Devontae Adams. Um, in Dynasty, I'm probably still giving the edge to Smitty just because I feel like I can still get a first for Smitty in the offseason.
Okay, last one: Devontae Adams or George Pickens?
I'm still probably going Pickens. It's hard. The age thing is hard for me. Um, so in a vacuum in Dynasty, these two against each other, I'm going with the youth. But I still feel like if you trade a second or 2 seconds, Devonte Adams could help you win money this year. And maybe the move is to send one of those guys and get a second thrown into the hat with the get Devonte Adams and a second for my Pickens, for my Olave, for my who was the other guy?
Sure, we had
Smitty.
yes,
Yeah.
Smitty.
Yeah, if I can get Adams and a second on top, maybe that's the move. Maybe that's the move I need to be, aggressively going after. If I'm a super contender, I get the production this year and I get some of that insulation with getting a future second so I can, get a young player back on my team. So that may be the play.
I like him, man. And when I'm looking at my guy, this is the second wide receiver that you should be trading for in 2025 if you are a contender. And man, has he been doing his thing since Tyreek once again, Tyreek Hill leg did do the left, right. Jalen Waddle the last month has been, if I'm looking at it, wide receiver 9, averaging 14.6 fantasy points. And boy, has he, I think, honestly, if you ask me, they've been leaning on him, and he's shown out to be, he can be a wide receiver one for the Miami Dolphins. It hasn't always looked good, but Tua is looking his way. It's not like he has a lot of weapons to begin with besides Waddle and Devin A. Chain. But how do you like Jalen Waddle? And I've always been a Jalen Waddle kind of hater just because of it's always been about injury for him. It seems like he'll get going, then something happens where he get banged up, and now he's going for a couple games. So, but when he's on the field, it seems like he is a speedster and he makes plays. What do you are you and honestly, I'm not sure how to feel about Jalen Waddle because you throw in the age factor. He's still young enough to warrant a first or late first. But do I feel comfortable sending a late first? I don't know. What do you think, Rocco?
I mean, I've always been a big fan of Jalen Waddle. He had back to back 1,000 yards to start his career off, in two completely different roles. The first year he had a very short A dot, very close to the line of scrimmage, and the second year he went more downfield, and it showed with bigger numbers. I think did he have like 1,400 yards in his second year? Maybe I'm talking out of my ass, and I'm not going to look it up. But if you want to look it up while I'm talking, but um, yeah, I mean, I think Jalen Waddle's freaking awesome. I mean, he's a great talent. I almost feel like Tyreek Hill bullied Tua a little bit into throwing him the ball, because I think Jalen Waddle probably should have been the number one, late like at the end of last season, because I think he's a better player. If he's healthy, I think he's at this point surpassed Tyreek Hill. But just look at the numbers since he's been the number one and Tyreek's been hurt. Since Tyreek Hill went down, 24 receptions, 400 yards in 6 games. That's 1,200 yard pace just about. 2 touchdowns, so that could be improved. But he's been the wide receiver 5 overall since Tyreek Hill's gone out.
Hmm.
I just think he's an awesome player, and I'm not glad that Tyreek Hill is hurt, but I'm glad that he's getting this opportunity to be the number one for a team, because he's been shining. He's been really consistent. I know he had one down game. I want to say it was against maybe Pittsburgh. Let me just pull
And
that
to
up.
confirm, yes, he basically almost did have 1,400 yards his sophomore year or year two.
Yeah, to me, like a guy that can put up 1,400 yards is just in a different tax bracket than a lot of players, because a lot of players, no matter how much opportunity they get, they'll never be capable of putting up that type of production. But
So
yeah,
looking at it,
yeah, yeah.
so
The
look,
only down game he's had was against the Browns,
Cleveland, yeah.
who having a super elite defense, and every other game he's been hella consistent. 80 yards, 5, 6 catches, with a couple touchdowns in that span. So I'm a fan. I would send out a first easily. Like if I knew I can get a first for him that wasn't like projected to be like, top 5 pick in the first round, I'd send a midi first. I'd send a late first. If I knew I had that open to me, I'd send it right now.
Yeah, right now that's why I'm trying to determine the price of what I want to. It's in a league where one, I'm the commissioner, so shout out to it. And I am 7-3. I am doing fairly well, and I'm looking at my wide receivers. I'm very running back heavy, so I have talent at the running back position, but I'm very wide receivers. If one of them goes down, I have CD and T Mac as my top two. If one of those guys go down, I'm kind of screwed. So I've been looking at Jalen Waddle. He's on the team right now that isn't going to make the playoffs. I've been trying to think because I have still have my first. I have a pair of second rounders, and I have a pair of thirds. So I've been thinking of maybe if someone would do 2 seconds for Jalen Waddle. What do you think?
You trying to offer 2 seconds?
Yes.
You're gonna get the LeBron look up. You're gonna get laughed out of the room. Like at this point, a first might not get it done, because I mean, like we said, he's been a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL for 6 weeks now, and been super consistent weekly outside of that one dud against, with arguably the best defense in the league, where he got banged up. But even with the banged up, he came right back the next week, and went right back to being a super consistent, five catches, 80-yard type of guy. So um, at this point, you may have to send out a first and a second for him, and that may be the pain point where you say no. But maybe a first and a third, could get it done. Which I don't value 26 thirds at all, because I think we're going to struggle to get a really badass first round, much less a second round, much less a third round, which are, dart throws anyway. So I don't really value the thirds. So yeah, if you could give me a top 5 wide receiver for a first round pick and a third, I think I'm going to pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, go get yourself some Jalen Waddle. I used to be a hater, but I've seen the light, and he can definitely do. he can definitely do nice, solid things for a fantasy team. And
Yeah.
honestly, if I'm looking at it, I don't see Tyreek Hill coming back to Miami. Honestly, I think his time is up. I don't know what his career is looking afterwards. It was a very gruesome injury, and he's also talked about potentially retiring as well. So the landscape for Jalen Waddle, but there was whispers that teams were trying to trade for him.
Hmm.
Miami kind of got cold feet, so we'll see what if the new regime, if a new regime comes in and they still like Jalen Waddle and want to keep him on the team, or if we see if Mike McDaniel's is out the way and Waddle goes out with him. We'll definitely keep that in tune, but that has been our 8 guys that you need to be trading for if you're contending. And as a recap, Rocco, could you give your four from the quarterback position, running back position, tight end position, and wide receiver?
All right, let's see if my memory is still good. I had Tyler Shuck of your New Orleans Saints. I had Rico, Uncle Rico Dowdle for the Carolina Pandas. So I'm going all NFC South for the first two. George Kittle, I think the glow up's going to be beautiful down the stretch. And Devontae Adams, a top 7 wide receiver in this league that you may be able to get for the price of a second or 2 seconds.
And if
Get him.
you and if you've seen or noticed the theme of today's video, it's been guys that you don't necessarily have to go too crazy out of your pocket for. Really, we've only the 2 players that we mainly talked about that you can need potentially might need to send out a first, and Waddle being more of the one that's probably guaranteed, is Kittle and Waddle. The other guys you could very much get for a second,
Hmm.
where you were still trying to compete and get yourself a chip, but also preserve your future and be able to pivot because you never know what you can do with that first round pick later on. So you don't want to pigeonhole yourself.
Yeah, and I'm going to say if you're going to buy high on anybody, the one and shout out to Chev, our guy Chev Door Sanders, and Ben McCown, Benny Noseball on in the Twitter streets. They had a topic about buy high. Who would you buy high?
Mhm.
And it's a kind of against my kind of fantasy dogma, my just the way I operate.
Mhm.
I usually don't like to buy high. I'd rather buy low or buy at a value unless I'm competing and I need to make a splash to try to win money. But if I was gonna buy high on any player, it would be Jackson Smith and Jigba. You got a guy that's almost at 1,000 yards at 10 games, and I don't know what the record for yards per route run. We talk about this stat a lot. As a harbinger of guys that are really kicking ass. Puka usually leads the league in this statistic. He's usually in the high threes, not high threes, but 3.5, which is like basically like one higher than the rest of the league usually.
Mhm.
Yeah, so JSN is sitting at I just had it pulled up. I think it's like 4.39, which is like just ridiculous. Like
Hella
it's just
efficient.
stupid. It's like a stupid number. It challenges your perception of reality is so fucking high. And if he continues this, which he could, because I looked up like his last 3 games, and he's like over a 6 in yards per route run. So that number's been going up. So that's just freaking ridiculous to me. So if I was gonna buy high on any player, I would shoot for the moon for JSN, but you're probably not gonna get him. But I just sent out an offer of 2 firsts and Jaden Reed for him today, and I'm sure I might get the LeBron look up. But you know, if you want to buy high on a person, that would be a one player that I would strongly suggest if you can find a way to get your hands on that player, do so.
Yeah, I'll second that one, Rocco. Where I've tried actually to go get JSN, and they said he's not leaving my roster no matter what. So I can respect it.
Smart,
You know,
smart,
I can very much respect it.
smart.
You know,
That's smart.
I think we're seeing the evolution of JSN, and you could argue he's the best wide receiver in football right now. He's another guy I could watch run routes all day.
It's really not even an argument when you if you look at it by yards per route run. It's just 4.61 on the year. 4 point like he's a few good great weeks from being at 5, and his next closest guy is Puka Nakua at 3.44, which is also amazing. And what's even more funny, if you look at the next person, is Rasheed Rice, who's only played 3 games. So small sample size, but he's at 2.56. So you're looking at two, you're looking at he's almost doubling up the next closest guy outside of Puka Nakua, which is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm telling you, well, shout out to JSN for going crazy this year. If you thought that was, if you had that in your on your bingo card, you're a liar. But also, but maybe you are a genius. Maybe that's we can point it that way. But my four were Matthew Stafford, R.J. Harvey, Jalen Waddle, or Mark Andrews, and Jalen Waddle as my wide receiver. But that has been our show. Catch us this Sunday. Rocco, where we going, man? What time we flying at? What time we flying and grooving?
I think there's another international game, so we can either do 8 or 8:30 your time, which is 7 or 7:30 my time.
Let's shoot for
So I'm good with
8:30
either
Eastern.
or.
8:30 Eastern, catch the morning rush Sunday as we are doing start and sit. Bring your toughest start and sit questions to the show, and we're answering them live. And as always, we keep bringing the vibes. But that has been this episode. Thank you, everybody who tunes in, like, support, share. Join our free Discord that you can find in the YouTube description. And also, as we go out, here is League Champ again, where you can win a free NFL jersey by being the number one ranker every week. The number one, beating either me, my boy Rocco here, Chev, Addy, hell, Ben, couple more great minds in the community. Get yourself a free NFL jersey. Tap into League Champ. Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a good rest of your night. Till next time. Oh, by the way, we're your fantasy playbook to more championship wins. And Rocco, where we the land of?
We're a fantasy football podcast for Dynasty Sickos by Dynasty Sickos. Y'all all are welcome.
I'm Huncho, and this is my guy.
Siriaco, call me Rocco.
Till next time.